Kebabjian Brani. I am a first descendant of a victim of the Armenian Genocide of 1950. Now, during my little talk, I am going to refer to some notes from the radio voice of the gospel. I'm shaking. I'm shaking. Okay. Here. The Armenian Genocide murders. Okay. I forgot my note home, so I had to go rush back and only so I'm a little bit excited.
You made it.
But I made it. Okay.
You made it.
The Armenian Genocide, murder and destruction of a nation. This extermination of the people of Armenia started progressively from actually 1908 to 1923. But today we're talking about the victims of the genocide of 1915. 1.5 million Armenians were slaughtered by the Young Turks to achieve an Ottoman state not by persuasion but by force. But we must remember today also that our flourishing homeland of 3,000 years of history was also reduced into a wasteland. And I quote here, those are not my notes. Every time I will say note, those are not my words. They're taken from this radio voice of the gospel. But we must remember also that the homeland was reduced completely of a wasteland. 2,050 churches, 203 monasteries and seminaries, 2,000 priests, ministers, and high-ranking clergies, 7 Armenian bishops, 127 Catholic fathers, 57 sisters, 2,000 schools, $14 billion in gold. Armenians, educators, businessmen, dentists, doctors, writers, poets, pharmacists, scientists, lawyers, members of the parliaments, all were among the alienation of the Armenians. Note, order, September 16, 1915, to the government of Aleppo. It was at first communicated to you that the government, by the order of Jamet, had decided to destroy completely all the Armenians living in Turkey. An end must be put to their existence. However criminal the measures taken may be, and no regard must be paid to either age, sex, or conscientious scruples. Minister of the Interior, Talat. Today, we are commemorating the 111th anniversary of the genocide. Why April 24th, 1915? Note, on the night of April 24th, 1915, and during many following nights and days, the Turkish police arrested over 750 Armenian intellectuals from Constantinople, now Istanbul, and deported them in the deep land of Anatolia. They were all murders at the same time. The massacres and wholesale deportation of the Armenians from their historic homeland were carried out by the Turkish government orders. Excerpt taken from the Gospel. My father was born in 1901 at age 15. In Ankara in 1915, all Armenian men aged 15 to 70 were arrested and on the road, and when they had traveled long enough hours to a secluded area, Turks, Kurds, criminal relieved from prisons fell upon all of them with axes, knives, and swords, thus exterminating the whole male population of Angora. My father Hachik recounts, I only carried in my pocket a pencil and a notebook. I had come from a faraway land. I had been urged by my mother and my grandmothers to flee immediately Anatolia, where all the Christians had just been subject to a horrific genocide. My mother had sewn gold coins into the lining of my coat, the only gold coins that they ever owned, and surrounded me to find a safe destination to settle down and bring the rest of my family, whatever was left of it. All in all, 18 people had already died. My dad continues, my eyes welling with tears and overtaken by anxiety, which never left me all throughout my long life, and very far from the village of my youth, while on my way, I soon was robbed of my fortune and was found left without a penny. And I had to continue my journey, but where and how? Which destination? A Greek family came to my rescue by giving me a shelter for a while, but I could not impose very long. They gave me a little bit of provision and sent me once more with lots of fear on my journey toward the unknown. All the while parting from my Greek friends at the tramway station, an unexpected event happened. At the tramway station, my nose up in the air, with no idea what to do next, in this strange town, a young man, obviously a ticket controller, was being violently fired from his job by his boss. The boss was cursing profusely, ordering him to leave immediately. I immediately seized the moment and asked the boss to replace him. The boss gave me a quick glance, so that I presented well. With only a second of hesitation, he plucked the punching machine in my hands and ordered me to get on board. That is how I became a ticket controller on a tramway en route for Constantinople. Such good luck, my destiny was etched. Now next, from Constantinople to Sofia, Bulgaria, where my dad stayed 2 years. We don't know what really happened, but us kids knew that my father was not always telling us everything. He would always keep the positive stories to his description to protect us from the tragedy. And so he ended up in Bulgaria, but once again, his luck was upon him. An Armenian family who, like him, had been expelled from their land, of which the dad had disappeared, gave him refuge. Strangely enough, the mother and the three sons had the same last name, Kebabjian. And not only that, one of her sons had the same first name, Khachik. The family was awaiting for their visa for the United States. Why not join them? Dreaming to embark soon, they planted themselves every day at the consulate with enormous waiting hours, exhausting comings and goings. Finally, the departure was imminent. The visas were ready. The departure date was in for the next week, but unfortunately, my dad was not part of that contingent. His request had been deposited too late. The quota had been met. Once again, he would experience another agonizing separation. His fate is still pending. He will seek asylum in France, in Paris, with documents showing in red ink, in capital letters, apatride, which means stateless, with no return possible. But by 1920, my father had managed to brought all his family, thus honoring his grandmother and mother's request. Meanwhile, in Yozgat, my mother, Angèle, at age 6, witnessed horrors. In peaceful time, a 6-year-old barely remembered anything, but my mother remembered very vivid, precise details of the horrific things. She kept a journal. She saw her dad being rallied off by men like him in uniform, taken out of the city, and never been seen again. Note, Act of 1910. 250,000 Armenians performing their military duties in the Turkish army were rendered powerless, deprived of their arms, and transformed into workmen. They were then deported, later tortured, and slaughtered. Now, my mother, Angèle, recounts. Then the Turkish gendarmes went from Armenian homes to Armenian homes, confiscating weapons and knives, looting, taking anything they wanted, including young adolescent girls. Each time they came, I would hide under the staircase behind concrete blocks. Now for her age, my mother was jarbig, meaning having wit and energy, and achkepats, which means being quick and alert, and literally translated, opened eyes. She escaped the deportation by stealing a Turkish flag, by placing it on the front of her door. Several years later, she would land in Marseille, France. In 1995, 80 years later, In Paris, my mother testified in a very first trial in Paris on the question of the Armenian genocide. It was the Forum of Armenians Association with the International League Against Racism and Antisemitism versus a historian named Mr. Bernard Lewis. This so-called historian who in 1965 mentioned the genocide of 1.5 million Armenians in his book, but later changed his mind. During an interview given to the French newspaper Le Monde, Mr. Bernard Lewis, implicated in politics, denied that the genocide ever happened. All the Armenians of the diaspora and the Armenians of France were outraged. To prepare for this trial, my mom had given police protection to and from the lawyer's office. They had to prove that she was not crazy. So time was the essence, because potential witnesses of my mother's generation were getting too old or too sick. Some couldn't even speak correct French. Some were too scared to testify for what the Turks may still do to them. Imagine, still after all this time. For some, the subject remained taboo. But my mom was not afraid. She was proven sound in mind, healthy, well-versed in French, and willing. Her testimony went on and on for an hour without any interruptions, leaving a courtroom and a judge silenced for a few minutes. Just before the trial, I asked, "Mom, what if you get hurt or even killed?" "Yavrus, mi vachnar, darling, don't be afraid," she said. "It is an honor and a great privilege to tell my story, our story, to the world, and even 80 years afterwards. Do you realize that I am the voice of the living of my generation, and for that matter, the voice of 1.5 million who have died? If I should die telling my story, our story, then so be it. So be it." I'm going to try to say that without dribble. "As fazudves vor aroch menam vorbes patmutiunus meshterella." God granted me health so that my stories be told. Shortly after the trial, my mother came to Kansas City to visit, and on April 24, we met at the Armenian Center. Dr. Terian spoke about the genocide, introduced my mother, and asked my mother her comment. My mother said, "To all Armenians, or to anyone who have suffered any kind of human rights violation, small or horrific, please write it down. Write it down in any way, any format, styles, or language. My facts stayed clear, precise, and not distorted by the time because of my notes. Who would have known that I would have to testify in court 80 years afterwards?" Growing up, we were very scared and afraid of my mother's black book. She would have said, I will write it down in my black book. Imagine as a child having your bad behaviors recorded in her black book with the horror of the genocide. Both of my parents are dead now. For me, my parents' homeland is Anatolia. It is my Armenia. Historical Armenia that is no more. I may never visit Yozgat or Ankara, but today I am very proud of my name Kebabjian, and I thank God for having spared my parents from the massacre and for not having become a Kebabjian Ochlu.
Kebabjian.
Yeah, Kebabjian Ochlu.
Yeah.
Because people stayed there had to convert to become Muslim.
35.
One more and last note. Hitler's order. August 22nd, 1939. I have given orders to my death units to exterminate without mercy or pity even women and children belonging to the Polish-speaking rest. It is only in this matter that we can inquire the vital territory that we which we need. After all, who remembers today the extermination of the Armenians? Adolf Hitler. Well, 111 years after, we still do, and we never will forget. To crown it all, did you know that in 1960, in my father's city of Ankara, modern Turkey had erected a statue of Talat Pasha to commemorate the chief organizer of the Armenian genocide of 1915. Genocides are still going on. The non-chastisement of genocides begot genocides. And today I would like to thank Armenian Rus for inviting me to talk to you on this commemoration of the 111th anniversary of the genocide, and for giving me the honor to share with you a little bit of my parents' story. Thank you for listening.
You know, we started 5 minutes late. We went 45 minutes beyond what we were planning. Most of you are tired. You want to go downstairs for cookie and coffee. But it won't be fair to close April 24 without lighting a candle in the memory of the 1.5 million people, not necessarily Armenian, 1.5 million people.
1.5 million people plus 360,000 Syriac people. And Assyrians as well.
Yeah, Greek, Assyrians, and Christians.
Yeah. Syrian.
A Greek person said, when we pray, we thank Lord that our fate was not like the Armenians.
Yes.
So yes, there were Greeks, there were others who were massacred, but of course as Armenian were. I'm going to ask RN and Dr. Gary or ushers if you can bring those candles which are back there, and let's distribute those candles to our members. This will be the last. If you want to come forward and start from here. It will be. All right, we're starting from the back, that's also good, but usually it's... sure each person has a candle in your drawer. And then you can take those candles back. And again, I'm going to ask from the ushers to come forward to receive the light so you can pass the light to the members. What is, if you want to come forward, what is important is if you have a lit candle, you don't want to turn it left, right. You keep it always straight. The person next to you who is receiving the candle will tilt the candle and take the light from you. So you always keep straight. I'm going to pass it to our ushers. And then you can start from the first person in each row. Thank you. Leave the first candle. And each of you pass it to the next.
Okay.
Straight up.
As the flame is passed from one person to another, let it remind us that remembrance is not carried alone. It is shared from generation to generation, from one heart to another. We keep the memory alive. What do you have in your hand? What do you have in your hand?
The light.
A light, one candle. This one candle represents 25,000 people. If you divide 1.5 million of parish by the number of members who are here, you are responsible, representing, acknowledging, remembering 25,000 people. With that, let's close our eyes for 1 minute of silence. Let me say thank you again for accepting our invitation and coming in today. Let's keep the light, love, and let's remember and tell the story of the Armenian genocide. Thank you.